Hello everyone and welcome to another codeLive session. Today we are going to see how front-end developers can use Salesforce platform to build interactive user interfaces. I'm going to show you how you can use the user interfaces, customize the user interfaces which are already available, and I'm also going to show you how to create the new user interfaces. So let me also share my screen. One second, I should be able to share my screen. Okay, so any application that runs on the web is mostly based on model view controller architecture, where stores the information or the data structure for storing the data. So you can define the data structure in the model, while you can implement the control to access the data from the model, and view is where you're going to show the data in some form, maybe in the form to access the data. You might be creating the user interface in the form of forms, or maybe some kind of user interface which displays the data. So how does this work? So let us say a user interacts with your application. It sends an action to the controller. Controller interacts with the model. It may update the data, or some kind of CRUD operation happens, and the response is notified back to the controller, which is sent back to the user interface, and the user interface will be updated. So today's session is all about the front-end developers, right? So we'll be mostly concentrating on how to work on the view rather than on controller and model. That doesn't mean that we are not going to work on model or controller, because all of these three parts are very important for any application. Salesforce provides a spectrum of tool, whether you are building using no code, like now if you want to build the applications without writing even a single line of code, or if you want to create the applications by writing a little bit of code, or if you want to write the applications by writing a lot of code, you can do all of these things using Salesforce platform. So it provides various tools for the spectrum of tools for all of these different use cases. And Salesforce platform comes with the inbuilt security and identity services. It supports mobile out of the box. It has its compute and runtime environments where you can run something like micro functions and much more. So I'm not going to talk about all of those things, but what I'm going to talk about is when we are using no code. That means you're not writing any code and you're creating the applications. How does the user interface look like? And similarly, when you use low code or pro code, how are you going to create the front-end user interfaces? That's what I'm going to concentrate on today. And yeah, this is codeLive session. I'll not be sharing too many slides, but definitely I'll share some of the concepts to the slides so that it will be easy for us to digest what we are learning today. So in no-code development, when it comes to the model, Salesforce provides some objects, which we call it as Salesforce objects out of the box. These objects can be standard objects or the custom objects. So whatever is provided by the Salesforce platform, those are all things called as standard. Let us say standard components, standard objects, standard classes, standard fields, and whatever you create by yourself, they are called as the custom things, like custom objects, so on and so forth. And when you create the applications without writing the code, Salesforce provides the user interface that is required for you to run the application. For instance, it provides the form to enter the input to create the records. And at the same time, it also provides the user interface to display your record information. So this is done using something called as page layouts and lighting pages. And then controller, again, as I said, here we are not writing any code. Still, we'll be able to use the controller, which is provided by the Salesforce platform out of the box, and it supports all kinds of CRUD operations. Let's see how the interface looks like. So those who are pretty new to the Salesforce platform, this is the organization where you can see a setup here, which means we are in the past where we can build the applications. And then when you can click the app launcher to launch the applications which are already built. So far we haven't built any applications, but the applications are already available, and they are available through something called as SaaS. So these applications are provided out of the box by Salesforce platform, and we call them as standard applications. So we have sales application, marketing application, service application, and so on and so forth. If you open any of these applications, you can see that it provides a set of navigation items. Like each navigation item is like a page which stores information about a specific object. For instance, this is the sales application, which stores information about the opportunities, leads, contacts, so on and so forth. So if you click any of these things, it is going to show you the records, a set of records that are already available, the opportunities in this case. It displays the information. It also provides a form for you to create. Like now, if you click new, it provides a form here where you can enter the data. Now, if you're creating your own application, still it generates a form for you for your application. So let's quickly see by creating a very small mm, object. Let's see how to create the object. Again, I'm in SAS. Let me switch to the pass here. I'll go to setup, and here I can create a object. So let us say I want to create an object to store some information about, say, vehicle. So I can give the object name vehicle, and I'll give a plural label here called vehicles. And whatever you build on Salesforce is it is wizard based. It has a simple sequence of steps that you do, and the and that particular thing is created for you. In this case, we are creating an object. So we are defining a label here. We are defining a name, and then we are giving a record name, which is like a record identifier. You can also give a auto number here if you want, and then I'll keep it simple. So let's keep all other things as default, where you can, like, set some optional features, so on and so forth. And again, as I said, my intention here is to show you how the forms look like when you don't even write the code, and how you can customize those forms. So here in this case, I'm creating a new tab, which in fact is going to create a navigation item that you can add to any of the existing applications or the applications that you're going to create. So let's save it, and it takes us to the wizard where we can create a navigation item. Here for this vehicle object, let's create a navigation item, and let us take something like gears because this is vehicle. Let's say next, and so here again, as I said, this all wizard driven. We are in step two where we are adding the security, who can access the specific page, whatever you're creating, specific object, whatever you are creating here. So let's keep this default and simply say next, and we can include it into in one of our apps, say sales app, and say save. Now when you go to the sales app, you can add that navigation item to your sales app here. So here I don't see the vehicle. Let's click this icon, and then let's add more items. And now we should be able to see the item that you have created. Yeah, we have vehicles. So you can add this item, and then you can move it in whichever, like, no place wherever you want. So you can organize the navigation items here. So I have organized that, and then let me refresh this page once. Yeah, I can see vehicles here. And then when I say new, it creates a form for me. So I haven't created this form. This form is provided out of the box. So when you write create the Salesforce application, it provides these forms for input. Let us say a vehicle called, say, Bellino, and let us save it. It creates that record, and it also displays the record. All these forms are created out of the box for you. That's how you can, and again, you can in fact edit these forms by using the object. Again, you can go to the setup and then click edit object, which is going to take you to the pass where you can see the page layouts. Currently, we have not added much fields, so we have only one field, but still you can edit that page by going to the page layouts. Here you can see the vehicle layout, and then you can edit the page here. So here you have the vehicle. So if you have more fields, you can see those fields displayed here, and you can organize those fields. You can move those fields wherever you want to place it. You can place, and the form will be created. That's fine. Now let's see what happens when we are using a low-code development. In the case of low-code development, model remains the same. So whether you are using no-code, low-code, or pro-code, you define the model where the data will be stored. Again, as I said, this model is defined in the form of S objects, which are just like tables in other technologies. If you are a front-end developer from some other technology, then it's just like the tables there. And then in the view, you can see a change here. So you can include, you have some new set of tools that you can use to create the low code. For instance, the formulas and stuff where you can create some flows here. And then again, you have the standard controllers that are available, standard code operations that are available, and you can also create your own set of automations. For instance, let's go to the setup here. And if I say flow, so you can create flows, you can create workflows, you can create processes. All of these automations can be created by you. Let's see how the flow looks like. So go to the flows. Now we have a form here to enter the vehicle information, right? If you want to create a form which is wizard driven, probably you can use the flow there. So let us say new flow. You have different options for creating the flows. These flows can be triggered based on a specific scenario. For instance, you want to create a wizard, the input from the user, and then do some processing on that input. Maybe you want to create a record. So you can use the screen flow there. Or if some record is already there existing on the system, which is updated, some action happened on that record, you can also trigger the flow from that record. So likewise, we have 5 different options. So let us say how screen flow and say create. So you have a canvas here where you can add the steps. Maybe I want to add a screen element. I can add a screen element. And then within the screen element on the left side, you can see various input elements that you can add and create a flow. Anyways, I'm not going to create flow. Let's save some time. I'll open one of the existing flows here and show you how a complex flow would look like. So let us go back to the flows. Let us open one of the flows. Let us say create a case. Here you can see this is a flow which is currently organized in a free form shape. On the left side, you can see the elements which you can drag and drop to create the flow. Or you can also change this layout to say auto layout, which looks a bit cleaner. And here you can see that this is the flow that you can use to create a case. Now let us say when a new case is raised, you get into the assignment stage. You confirm the customer information. So if you edit the element, you can see that it has the first name, it has the last name, and then further steps And if you want, let us say once the information, let us say the customer information is confirmed. Now you want to see the customer details. That's the next step. So we have a step where customer can enter the email, phone, and stuff. And once this is verified, um, the contact is looked up. You can see whether the contact is already existing or not. Again, for this, you are using a action element called get records, which is going to get that contact record by sending that customer information. If the record is existing, then it is going to go to the default flow, and then the case is assigned, and finally the case is created. These are various steps. We need not really go through all of these steps now, but this is how a flow generally works. And again, if you want to learn more about the flows, one codeLive session happened maybe a week back or so, where they have covered the various patterns of creating the flows. Okay, how does this flow look like? If you run the flow, you can see that it is going to show you a wizard where you can enter some information. Here you can see the first step where you are getting the customer information. So first name, let us say John. Um, John Aham, and then we say next. It takes you to the next step where you are going to enter some email address, and phone number, maybe, say next, and then you can create a case type, so on and so forth, maybe electrical. I'm choosing something randomly, some issue, some details, next, and finish. This is going to create a case. So what you can do is you can create a quick action, an action element, a button for this flow in any of your screens, let us say in your sales app, maybe in your home screen, you want to add that, you can add that in the home screen. So you can go to the sales app and then you can add that case creation. If, for instance, if I want to add the case creation, that wizard here itself within this home screen, I can do that. Again, for that, we can use one of the tools that is provided by the Salesforce platform, which is called as App Builder. So when I click this edit page, it is going to automatically launch the App Builder tool for us, where we can, on the left side, you can see various components that you can drag and drop to customize this interface. So, as I said, now we are working with the no code and low code things where we are using the app builder. On the left side, you can see there are some components which you can use, and some of the components are already there in your page. So these components are all the standard components which are provided out of the box. And then you can also create your own custom components, and then these custom components can also be used, which I'm going to talk about in a short while now. So how do you use the flow? You can just drag the flow here, and then you can select whichever flow component you want to use here. You can select that flow name, maybe create a case. This is the flow you want to use. You can add that flow and simply say save, and then activate. It is going to ask you whether you want to activate that flow for, like, this page for the complete org. When I say org, this org contains a number of applications that you create. And when I say org default, it is going to apply this page layout across the complete org. Or if you want to apply it to a specific set of apps, you can also assign to specific apps, or you want to assign to specific app and profile, a specific profile only, you can even do that. For now, let's say org default. Let us assign as org default and save. You can save it, and then if you go back, here you can see that your form is added to this particular page. Likewise, you can create any kind of automations and then add it to the specific pages, maybe app pages or even the record pages. Now, let's see what we are going to do when we are using the code for the development. So Salesforce, as I said, Salesforce provides various ways of implementing the view here. Here, if you see, we are using the same model. There is not much change. We are going to use the same standard objects, same custom objects. But then in the controller, here we are using a programming language called Apex, which is just like Java, I would say. And it is a kind of the syntax, if you see, it's a pretty simple syntax. It's like a subset of Java syntax. And then view, there are different ways of creating the view. Historically, basically there are two types of user interfaces. Here, if you see, this specific user interface is called as the Lightning user interface. But again, if you want to switch to one of the old classic user interface, you can even do that. So here I say switch to Salesforce Classic. This is one of the oldest user interfaces. Here you can see that the look and feel is totally different. So Visualforce is one of the markup languages, which is tag-based markup language, which is again based on HTML and other markup tags, specific markup tags for Visualforce, with which you can create the page elements. And it's a kind of classic, as I said, it is a kind of classic way of creating the user interfaces. But the modern way of creating the user interfaces is all about Lightning. You can create user interfaces for the Lightning experience, and whatever you are seeing here currently is the Lightning experience. For this, again, you can create the user interface using the Aura programming model. Again, this is little older model, I would say, and the most modern programming model is Lighting Web Components programming model. And today we are going to see how we can use the Lighting Web Components programming model um, to create the user interfaces. But again, why Lighting Web Components programming model? Because it is a modern open source user interface framework, and most important point here is it is built on the web standards, which means most of the things will be are based on the web standards, and the framework is really thin, and the amount of implementation is also really less as compared to other types of frameworks. And then you can use lighting web components. Basically, you can concentrate on your business logic rather than concentrating on the various aspects of the components. So we are going to see how we are going to do that. And again, most of you, I believe, are the front-end developers who are attending the session today and who might be watching the session even in future. So as a front-end developer, you build applications using the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. These are the most common technologies, right, that we use in the front end. So this Lighting Web Components is totally based in the on this HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So you're going to use the knowledge that you already have. And today we'll see how we can leverage that knowledge to create the user interfaces on the Salesforce platform. But before that, I want to quickly check if you have any questions so far. Uh, So I can see a general question: is there any Salesforce community for SF developers in India? There are a lot of communities, regional communities. You can join those communities, and a lot of things happen. A lot of events happen. For instance, if you see Delhi developer community, they do something called a Salesforce Saturdays, where they deliver these sessions. Likewise, most of the communities in India are really active, and you can join those communities, Saurabh. So now let's see how does this Lightning Web Component work. So as I said, Lightning Web Component is built using HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, and then uh, the controller is generally implemented using Apex, and the JavaScript can interact with the controller, and then the controller can do a DML operation on your S object, and if you want to retrieve the data from this object, we can use a language called SOCL. Again, this is it is SOCL, it's not SQL, where it is Salesforce Object Query Language. So which runs the queries on the Salesforce object, not on the general data, right? So the data is stored in the form of Salesforce object. So you are running the queries on Salesforce object there. We'll see how we can implement the LWC using these uh, basic knowledge. To do that, I'm going to use something called as Visual Studio Code. Most of you might already be knowing Visual Studio Code. So let me open it once again. Okay, so yeah, it opened in other window. Let me drag and drop here. Yeah, cool. So this is my Visual Studio Code environment where I can create a Salesforce project. So again, this Visual Studio Code has Visual Studio Code as I said, it's a lightweight environment where you can put a lot of extensions, plugins. Maybe you want to develop applications on Java or some other technology. You have the extensions for that. Similarly, we have an extension called a set of extensions for Salesforce, which we call it as Salesforce Extension Pack. So I already installed Salesforce Extension Pack here, and then it has the support for Apex and all the user interface languages like just the Lightning Web Components, and then we can directly run the commands on those components. So let's create a project. You can run the command from you can launch the command palette by clicking this and then clicking this command palette here. or you can also launch the command palette from the file menu. And this is where you can run the Salesforce DX commands, the developer experience commands, with which you can create the projects, you can create the Lightning Web Component, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and create the project. Let's call it as, so yeah, so it's a standard project. So you have three options. You can create a standard project. Let me open it again. When you say create project, you have a standard project, an empty project, or you want to create an analytics project, you can do that. When I say standard project, it is going to create the basic boilerplate code for storing the Apex classes, Lightning Web Components, or Aura components, or the pages, the record pages that you saw earlier in the earlier demo. All of these things can be stored. So let's say standard and simply say demo. And we can maybe store it somewhere on desktop, and the project is created. And here on the left side, you can see that it has created a boilerplate structure for us. So we want to work on the Lightning Web Component. So we can go here. So this is where your Lightning Web Components will be created. But if you are creating the FX class, this is where you are going to create. Okay, let's see how to create a Lightning Web Component. So you can say launch the command palette again and say create. Here you have Lightning Web Component. And let us give a name as say hello, um, a basic component. And this is the path where the Lightning Web Component will be stored. If you see here, it is force app main default LWC. So I'm selecting this path, and it has created a component. On the left side here, you can see that uh, it has created a HTML file, it has created a JavaScript file, and it also created one more file, which has extension like meta.xml. So you can use the HTML file to write your HTML code. Obviously, JavaScript is what this is what we already know as the front-end developers. What we don't know is the meta file, and this file is used to configure the information for the Lightning app builder, where you want to use this component. From where you can add this component to the different pages like app page, record page, so on and so forth. So let's create a simple component. Let us say hello component, and let us save it. And then we want to deploy it to an org. So I already have a developer edition org which I created earlier. So I'm going to use the same org. Let us say I think I created a ebikes demo org. So I can use this org, and I can deploy this code. But again, one step I need to know do even before deploying the code is I to set up this meta file, where I have to set this as true is exposed, which is going to expose this component in the Lightning App Builder. So Lightning App Builder is what you saw earlier, where we have created the flow component, added the flow component to one of the pages. And then you can also define the targets. So targets are like, what kind of pages, in what kind of pages you want to use this component. Maybe a Lightning app page, or maybe a record page. Record page is what, like, no, when you create the records, when you store one record information, that's where you use the record pages. And the home page is where is the one which you saw earlier, where we added the flow component. That is the home page for your complete app, right? And then you can also create an app page where you can add one or more components, and then create some kind of really useful a kind of application, a single page application within your app to perform some kind of logic for you. So let us add this to, let us say, a home page. Maybe I'll show you by adding it to the home page itself. So I can say lightning underscore homepage. This is how you define. Sorry. This is, you are going to define within, say, target. Let me cut it off. Okay, within targets you can define one or more target, and here you can have app page, home page. So you can see various options that are available. Now let me select the Lightning home page. So let us say lightning underscore underscore homepage, and let us save it. And now let's deploy this code. You can go to this component, right click and deploy source to Arc. Once it is deployed, you can go here and then click open Arc. And within your sales app, maybe let's open the sales app or any app that you would have created. You can also add it to the custom app. Again, as I said, you can launch the app builder using edit page, and then you can search for the your component, or as I said, here we have the standard components, and here you have the custom components, and you can see our hello component here. I can drag the hello component and put it here, and it displays hello. I don't know if you are able to see it or not, but if I go back, yeah, here we have the hello that is being displayed again. So it really doesn't look good because it's all transparent. So what we can do is we can use one of the features of the one of the components, one of the features I would say of the Lightning Web components called as base components. Now LWC provides some of the components which are created for you, which are available out of the box, and you can use those components to create the user interfaces. Rather than talking about those things, let me show you what exactly it is. So Salesforce provides something called as component library. Uh, yeah. So component library, you can in fact search for the component library. Let me close all other tabs. No problem. And here let us search for Lightning component library. So Salesforce Lightning component library is where you can find some of the components which are already available. For instance, you can go to this Lightning and say accordion. So you have a accordion component, and you can see an example of how it looks like. So here it shows a preview. So you have the accordion open section name B, accordion A, so on and so forth. You have the preview here, and you also have a playground, a live playground where you can make the changes to this playground, and while you make the changes you can see the changes here and you can use it. So there are different components, like for instance you want to create a component for alert, maybe you want to create a component for badge, or in our case always prefer creating the components, any Lightning Web components I prefer to put it in the card, okay, which has a kind of non-transparent background. So for instance here I have something like hello, a card here, right? So here you can see that I have an example for the card. You can also see a documentation. You can also see the specification here. Within documentation, you can also see the examples that you can use. Anyway, let us go here. So for in our case, instead of like not just saying uh, hello dot hello transparently, I want to do something. Print here. Let me zoom it a little bit. Cool. So yeah, so I want to configure this component. Here it says card body. Instead of card body, I want to say hello world. Okay, you can see that it dynamically changes the user interface there. So you can try that, and then you can simply copy this from here, go back to your code, paste it in your code, and save it. Okay, now let's deploy these changes. You can deploy this source to Arc. And if you go back to your Salesforce Arc and say refresh, now you can see a beautiful hello component here. which has like hello world. Anyway, I don't want you have the button. I can remove the button, and the button will be gone. This is how you can create the lighting web components. And again, let's also examine the JavaScript file. If you see the JavaScript file, you can see that it extends a lightning element, and this lightning element is imported as a module. If you're coming from like other technologies where you already know the JavaScript, and you might know that module is one of the standards of JavaScript, right? Where you can import the source code from this library in the form of modules, and then you can use those modules. And not only that, here you can see that it uses the concept of class, and you can also define methods within this class. So I can write more components, but I'll show you a way with which you'll be able to learn more about these components. So um, there is something called as, let us go to developer.salesforce.com first. And if you go to developer.salesforce.com, you can find various resources here. So you can if you want to try, of course you are all front-end developers, but if you want to try different clouds of Salesforce, there are different trilogues that are available, and you can also find documentation and APIs, and then you can also you also have something called as developer centers, from where you can learn a lot about specific aspects of the platform, like say platform or commerce cloud or experience cloud. If you want to learn about a specific thing, you can find all the related resources in this developer center. But what I wanted to show here is you can go to code samples and SDKs, where you can find a lot of open source projects, and you can go to the GitHub repository, and you can copy the code from there and use the code. One of the open source projects which is really useful if you are just getting started with the Salesforce platform as a front-end developer, I would say, is LWC recipes. So, okay. So, yeah, maybe my internet. Yeah, here it is. My is a spelling mistake, sorry. So here we have something called as LWC recipes. If you click this, it takes you to the GitHub repository, where you can see the repository, and then you also have a README document which provides the information about how to deploy this code and how to use this code. It's pretty simple. So what I've done is I've already deployed this code in one of my org, where I can show you various examples of how to create the components. And in fact, whatever component I just created is also part of the LWC recipes. So let's go ahead and let me open that. Let me, for now, let me close this project and let me open. Yeah. So let me open this org, recipes org. So the deployment is pretty simple. So once you go to the, let us say, GitHub repository, you can either follow these steps, or your job is even made easy if you are using some kind of PowerShell on Windows, or of course Shell on Mac. You have a bin directory where you have something called as install scratch. You can just drag and drop that here, and press enter. It's going to run through all of the steps that are mentioned in this README document, and it deploys the source code, and it opens the app for you. So everything is done with a single step. So anyway, I've opened the app. Let's explore and see what we have in that app, and then um, how we can leverage our existing knowledge of JavaScript to build Lightning Web Components. So yeah, let me click this once again. It opens the arc, and here you can see the LWC recipes app. So where you have different recipes here, let us say, let us see how or the knowledge that already we have, how we can use that knowledge and see if that knowledge is really useful while we create the components here. Let us say hello component. I think I was playing with the hello binding component here. Let me make a small change here. Hello binding.js. Okay. Yeah, cool. Let us see what we have in this code. Okay, so this is your like your hello component. I use the same code. I use the lightning card here. Okay, within the lightning card, I have some code, and this is all boilerplate code, I would say. The most important thing is this hello comma world. Earlier we said hello comma world, but here you can see a different kind of notation. You can see a kind of like no brace notation, simple notation. With this notation, you can access the properties that are defined in your JavaScript file. In this JavaScript file, I've created a greeting property and I've initialized this greeting property to world. So what it does is when I deploy this code, it is going to show hello, comma, whatever value we have here, which is world. So it is going to show hello, comma, world, exclamation. So let's see, let's deploy this code. Again, um, while you work on Salesforce platform uh, using Salesforce GX, you can work using the developer environment, which I showed earlier, or you can also create some temporary orgs. In this case, I created a temporary org called Scratch, where I can push this code. So let me push this code to that Scratch org here, and the Scratch org is what we have been seeing just now. So here, let us refresh this page. And here you can see the hello binding component, and it displays hello comma world. And we have an input here. If you go back and see the code, you can see that there is an input here, input tag, lightning input, which has a label, and it is getting the greeting property, which is getting the greeting property, and then you are using something like on change. So whatever you do in JavaScript in general, you can use the similar syntax here. You can use that handler. So in this case, on change, I have implemented a handler called handle change. And here you can see that in handle change, I'm setting this greeting value, this dot greeting, to the event dot target dot value. So whatever value has been entered in that input box, that value we are showing here. So let's see how it works. So here, instead of world, I would say, let us say, hello developers. So I'm typing something and you can see that it is, this value is getting changed. So when I'm typing, it is generating an event here in hello binding, and this on change event is getting fired, and that event is being reflected here. It is automatically updating. And all the properties that you define in the class are reactive by nature. That means if the property value changes here, it automatically updates the user interface. This is how it works. Now we saw like now it is built using the HTML, the same JavaScript, and you can also apply the same styling rules, CSS, and then it also has a meta file. So I'll talk about styling a little bit more in the next set of recipes. But let's see one more recipe here, hello expressions. And it's very easy to really navigate through all the recipes here and learn. And I also want to say that like, all of these recipes are implemented in less than 30 lines of code, which means they're very simple and easy to learn. And you can also see that how easy it is to implement. It's less than number of lines of code. So yeah, let us see these hello expressions, what it does. So let me add my write my name here, Satya, and Sekhar. What it does is it is showing that information in a capital case letter. Let us examine this code here. So if you see hello expressions dot JS. So here we are using the handle change, and then we are, so it's just like our hello world component. We have two properties, and whenever there's a change, we are making the changes. But then what we are doing is we are using a expression here, so which is written in single quote. It evaluates the value of the first name and last name, and then it is converting it to the uppercase, and it is returning that. And here you can see that uppercase full name, I have not defined it as a property, but I have defined it as a getter method. So if you are not going to change the values of any of the properties, then you can simply define a getter method here. You can use the get keyword and define the getter method, and it is going to return that value. And here you can use it just like your uh, um, you can use the greeting value here and then output the value. So we are showing greeting value, and here what we are doing is we are simply uh, calling this uppercase method where we are sending the first name, last name. Uh, Fine. Yeah, first name and last name. Okay, and okay, I'm in fact like, no, let me open the hello expression.html where you can see that we are using the same uppercase full name. Okay, so this is uppercase full name, and I'm accessing it with the same simple syntax. Similarly, you can also compose one component in another component. You already saw an example. You saw the lightning card within which we have given some information. And let us say lightning element. Lightning element is composed within the lightning card. So here you can see some a real example where you have a C contact tile. This is a component, and composition basics is the parent component. Let us open composition basics. So if you see composition basics.html, um, so this is the component, and then in that component you can see that we are using a contact tile component. Okay, so this is how you can use the component which is already defined. There is a contact tile component. You can open the contact tile. So we have a contact tile component already. So we are using this contact tile component, and we are composing the in the basic component. You are just using the contact tile component. So you can use one component in another component. So that is possible, and you can also make communication. If you see like no communication, how to communicate from the child component to the parent component, you can use the events. You can also define some custom events. Let me show an example here. One example. If I say, let us open the event simple. This is the parent component. So within event simple component, we are using the paginator component. And you can also notice that I'm using C hyphen, which indicates that this is a custom component. And here you can see lightning namespace, which indicates that it's a standard base component that is provided out of the box. And so in the C paginator, so here what we are doing is, so let us see the C paginator code also. So in C paginator, we have a previous button, we have a next button. Whenever we are clicking the next button, you can see that the value increases here. So let's see how this is implemented. So if you go to the paginator, so in paginator, let's open the paginator.html. So in paginator.html, we have a lightning button called previous, and then you also have a lightning button called next. So whenever previous is clicked, it is going to call the handle previous method. So in which case it gets to the handle previous method, and here you can see that you can create a custom event and dispatch that event. So whenever it is clicked here in the child component previous, it is going to create a custom event and it's going to dispatch that event, which can be caught by the parent component. So in the case of event simple, you can see that, so on previous. So whenever that previous event is fired, it is going to call the on previous event, and then it is going to handle that previous element. Let us see the JavaScript code. And here you can see that in handle previous, it is checking if the page size is greater than 1, and it's simply decrementing the number. So that's how you can also communicate from the child to the parent, and there are a lot of other scenarios And again, with the in the interest of time, I'm not going to cover all of those things, but this is how you can create the components. One important point I want to show here is we were looking at the paginator component. Let us go back to the paginator.html, and here uh, or let us say event simple. I think this is where I saw, yeah, event simple. So in the event simple, you can see that we are using some class for styling, and you can see it says SLDS show and SLDS is relative. So in lighting platform, if you see the user interface, so the user interface looks alike wherever you go. It has a well-established user interface with a consistent branding, right? How does that work? So it is done using the Lightning component styling framework. So rather framework, I would call it as um, Salesforce Lightning Design System. So this is the lighting design system. I'm calling it as lighting design system because it's something beyond framework. So it provides various things. If you go here, it provides the guidelines, design guidelines on how to create the components. So when you create the components in design guidelines, you can see the, let us see one example, like say um, tables or anything. For instance, let us say builder. It gives you some basic guidelines like how to create that. For instance, if you're creating tables, so what are the best practices when you create the tables? What are the design guidelines? It shows various design guidelines when you create different kinds of user interfaces. And not only that, it also provides the guidelines when you are creating the user interfaces which are dynamic, which are like kinetic. So it provides the design guidelines for that, and it provides the accessibility guidelines. So when you create the components, the various accessibility considerations that you'll have to take, the aura things that are supported, all of these things are provided in these guidelines, in the accessibility guidelines. While it provides various guidelines, it also provides some of the blueprints. Like let us say I was showing one of the base components, right? Accordion. So accordion is built using the SLDS, Salesforce Lighting Design System. That's how we got that instead of transparent background, we got some other background in the card component. Okay, or for the accordion component, that the complete flow, the accordion user interface, it's all based on the Salesforce Lighting Design System. And if you go into these component blueprints, you can also see the code here. You can use this styling code even on off the Salesforce platform, not just on the Salesforce platform. So you can use the component blueprints, and from here you can also go to the lighting component. So not for all the component blueprints you have the base lighting components, but you have for most of the things like buttons, input, cards. You can see the lighting component here, and when you click that, it's going to take you to the component library, and you can see how that is implemented. You can copy paste that example code and create your lighting web components. Um, this is one thing I wanted to show. And before I go further, let me quickly check if you have any questions. Maybe I'm a little fast, but if you have any questions, even after this session, you can always reach me on Satya SFDC. Uh, so I have, yeah, I have a question from Sai Teja. Are lifecycle methods applicable even for LWC? Yes, Sai Teja. Lifecycle methods are applicable even for LWC, and you can write any kind of code when the component is initialized in the connected callback. So all of these lifecycle methods. Let me show you a guide from where you can also learn the Lightning Web Components. Developer guide. You can search for Lightning Web Components developer guide. And you can you can use these lifecycle methods. You can create the hooks, and then whatever code you want to write, you can do that. So yeah, this is the developer guide where you can learn. It provides the, I would say, it's like a Bible for the Lightning Web Components. where you can find the complete information on how all the aspects of the LWC features. So this is the best place I would say for you to get started and learn the things. It's not even a very big guide, but yeah, you can just search for a specific concept like say dynamic interactions or like you said life cycle hooks. You can search for those things and then you can read that. You also have the examples. Most of these examples uses your uh, examples from your recipes and other places. Now let us say composition. So how to compose the components. It shows an example here. Okay, it lists the documentation. It's the best place to learn that. And I have one question. Are you guys planning to bring TypeScript support to Salesforce front-end developers soon? Likewise, maybe in beta. Uh, yeah, so Aritra, actually, we have done a session on TypeScript, how much of it is supported at the moment. So as I said, there's not much great support of TypeScript at the moment, but yes, for sure. But at the same time, we use TypeScript as well in the writing web components. I will share that link with you in the description later, and yeah, you can also watch that session. Uh, uh, is there any feature scope for front-end developers in Salesforce platform? Uh, of course, that's the reason why Shali, I'm doing this session, and this session is at a very high level, I would say for sure. We have created some easy to digest, bite-sized tutorials for you, I would say, in the form of quick takes, and also we have created some quick starts with which you can get started with your learning. But yes, you definitely have a scope and a lot of scope, I would say. Okay, that's all questions. And I know I'm almost on time, but before I go, I just wanted to show a one or two applications very quickly. So this is LWC Recipes is the app where you can learn the concepts in like bite-sized concepts. Like now you want to see how, let us say, um, messaging is implemented in Lightning Web Components. You can go and see the messaging service. So if you want to see how parent to child communication happens, you can go to parent to child and you can choose any specific method. You can also go directly from here. You can also go to the GitHub repository and see the source code and learn and understand how to use it. Likewise, we have some other apps, which actually I also wanted to implement a use case today, but I'm sure the time will not be sufficient for that. But at least I'll show you the apps that are available. Again, for that, I would say you can go back to developer.salesforce.com, developer.salesforce.com, and let me open that. So let's go to code samples again. And we have something called as e-bikes LWC, which implements a kind of near real-time use case on how to implement a bike store. So it also covers the features like Experience Cloud, one specific thing of the Salesforce platform. So it also covers that aspect. Likewise, we have an app called Dreamhouse, which deals with a real estate property. So if you're working on some kind of a kind of store application, you can go and explore the source code here, and you can, as I said, every repository that we share here, especially for learning, we provide the README document and all the instructions that are required in order to deploy the code. Let me quickly show you the deployed code which I already deployed. Let me close this so that you'll understand uh, uh, what kind of user interfaces that you can create by combining all of these base components and also by creating your own custom components. Let me go to that project. I already checked out that project. Let me open that. So I have the project here. While it loads, one more important thing you might want to learn is like, getting the data. So as I said, there are different ways of getting the data uh, from your backend. So Salesforce provides different tools and different features. For instance, if you are accessing a single record, it provides a base component for you. You need not really write the code. With the base component itself, you can get the record information. So I already have something like that base component. Let me show one of the components here. So contacts. Here you can see this record form dynamic contact. This gets the contact information, the specific contact information, Jonathan's information. But it is done without writing the code. Similarly, you can also use your Apex, and you can also use something called as wire adapters or lightning data adapters, which where you are going to write very little bit of code. But again, as I said, let me show you this app to show the power of uh, the user interfaces that you can create with Lightning Web Components. So here I have an app called eBikes app, and you can see this is an implementation. So while that is recipes, here is an implementation. I have a product explorer. So eBikes app is all about a e-bike store, which shows the information of the available e-bikes. So you can search for the e-bikes. Here you can see, you can like, you can drag the price range, and it is going to filter out the e-bikes. Okay. And you can also search by categories. Maybe you want to see only mountain bikes, only commuter bikes. You can see the mountain bikes, so on and so forth. And if I click this, you can see that it gives the information here. And then I can go to the detailed information. So when I click that, it takes me to the record detailed page where I have the detailed information. And I'll show you one more user interface wherein like, you can create a order. So let us say new order. You can create an order for say Trailblazers. Let me say, please save. And here you can see that I have an interface which looks really good. Um, yeah, and some help also here. So you can drag and drop the components. So, and yeah, and if you want to see how this is implemented, it's pretty easy. You can go and see what page it is, a reseller order. You can go to say edit page and see what are the different components used here. And then you can see, go to the respective components and see how the code is implemented for those components. Okay, cool. So you have this component here, or let me even go back. So you have product explorer component. If you want to see how this is implemented, you can go and like no see the code here. So let us say in product explorer, let me open the let us open the page anyways. You can see each of these are independent Lightning Web components. Let me select this component. You can see that information here. So this component name is product tile list. So I can go here and I can search for product tile list, and you can find the code here. So this is the HTML file and JavaScript file and the meta file. It's the same set of files that we are using. And you can also write the tests for the Lightning Web Components using a framework called Just Framework. And yeah, let me open any of the tests if at all. Um, okay, this is how the test looks like. Anyway, in the interest of time, I'll not be covering how to write a test, but definitely we'll do one codeLive session on how to create the test for the Lightning Web Components. With that, I'd like to see if I have any questions. I can take the questions, but again, um, you can reach me out. As I said, if you have more questions, you can always reach me out on Twitter, where I can I can answer all of your questions. Yeah. And with that, I would like to thank you, each and everyone who joined this session today, and also the people who are going to watch this session later on the YouTube channel. So, yeah, I think we are good.